Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you as always for joining me. Plenty to get stuck into today. We're going to talk about Cristhian Mosquera, who's arrived in England ahead of his move to Arsenal. That should be wrapped up at some point this week. So we're going to talk about that. He's been speaking over in Spain before jumping on an aeroplane to head over to London. We'll look at what he's had to say about his potential move to Arsenal. We'll talk about Viktor Gyokeres as we await the sort of final stages of that deal going through. Few whispers from Portugal, Sporting trying to make things a little difficult right at this very crucial stage. So we'll talk about that. I'm going to talk about Noni Madueke as well. He completed the final part of his medical yesterday ahead of his switch to Arsenal. Could be a very big week in terms of money-wise when it comes to transfers into the football clubs. We'll talk about that. We've got some questions and some comments from you guys as well, as always, to get stuck into. Just to flag up, myself and James Benge are going to be sitting down later on today for Inside Arsenal Extra Time. Anything you want us to discuss in that show, any questions, not just about transfers. I know transfers dominate everything at the moment, but if you've got a question not about transfers, about next season, about team selections, I don't know, something like that, then please do get in touch. Start in the comments with Extra Time, give us your questions, and we will pull some of them together and get them included in show later this afternoon. Right, let's start with Cristhian Mosquera, shall we? If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a picture of him there as he was leaving the Valencia training ground yesterday ahead of his trip to England. He was sort of caught, he was signing some autograph for fans on the gates and some reporters were there. They chucked the microphone in front of him, did a very Harry Redknapp-esque interview. This is what he had to say. He said, "Valencia is my home and it always will be. I arrived when I was 12 and now I'm leaving as a grown man. It's a little sad because you've been here your whole life, but decisions in football are like that. Now a new era begins." He said, when asked about his departure, he said, "I prefer the club to talk first, then whatever happens will happen." It's exciting, but it's also sad. So that was yesterday. And this morning, he was at the airport at Valencia, getting on a plane to make the journey to Arsenal. Again, there was cameras there, reporter there who put a microphone in front of him. And he said a few words before disappearing off into the airport. He has now landed in the UK. He has arrived. He'll head over to London Colney, do all the necessary stuff, do the medical, not at London Colney, but he will do a medical in London and he'll go after all the media stuff. And I would expect an announcement for him in the latter stages of this week. Same would probably go for Noni Madueke. I think the Mosquera deal is an exciting one. We talk about a lot of the deals so far this season, as this summer, as not that sort of exciting. Christian Norgard, Kepa, those sort of signings, smart pieces of business, you could say, but, exciting, maybe not. What I like about Mosquera, I like what I've seen of him as a footballer, first and foremost, but this is kind of a bit of a step into the unknown. I don't know much about him. Not many of us know too much about him. Let's face it. We've all tried to catch up. We've all tried to speak to people who watch football in Spain, who know more about him than us. We've all watched and what he's going to bring, what he can add to this squad. But it is always nice when you just get a nice unknown signing, really. It's just a little bit of tinge of uncertainty about it, of mystery about it, excitement about it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring. Certainly from my very limited knowledge of him, I think to this squad, obviously we've needed right-sided centre-back cover for a long, long time now. And we're going to have that in him, but he's not just a right-sided centre-back. He can play on the left side of the central defence as well. He's very two-footed, which is a real positive thing, especially when it comes to Mikel Arteta, because he loves that versatility. He could play as a right-back if needed as well. So there's a lot of versatility there. He's big, he's strong, he's good on the ball. He looks to drive forward at times. So all the attributes are there, I think, for him to be a very, very good Premier League player. And when you've got Saliba and Gabriel ahead of you to learn from, I mean, there's not a better centre-back pairing to learn from in world football than those two as well. So I think this is a really exciting signing, and the price is so good. Arsenal have really stayed firm here. Credit to Andrea Berta for the job he's done in negotiations. He had a £20 million release clause. Arsenal haven't even got to that. Even with the add-ons, it wouldn't even be 20 million euros, release clause as well. Initially, it's under 15 million, and then add-ons taking it to probably around sort of 18, 19 million pounds. So it's a really good deal for a young, talented defender who could hopefully learn over the next couple of years. And, if needs be, end up being a first-team regular at the Arsenal. So Mosquera, he's here, he's arrived. Medical, media stuff to come. Announcement, I would say, at the latter end of the week. Right, let's talk about Viktor Gyokeres, shall we? Obviously, big developments with him in the last 24, 48 hours or so. Deal has been agreed in principle with Sporting. We spoke about that yesterday. His agents have now flown into London to try and conclude the deal. They've been at London Colney. They were there yesterday with the recruitment team, with Andre Berta, everyone like that, trying to get these deals over the line with Tim Lewis, obviously, Richard Garlick, trying to get the sort of ins and outs of this deal over the line. There have been suggestions in Portugal as we were going to bed last night. There was reports coming out that the deal could be in jeopardy over the add-ons and how achievable they are and all that sort of stuff. Because we know the deal that's been agreed is sort of 55 million up front and then a further just under 10 million in add-ons. And now it's about getting those add-ons absolutely right for this deal to go ahead. And that's what they've been working on in London and in Sporting with the agents to try and get this over the line. I think it's absolutely going to happen. I'd be stunned at this stage when you've got so far in these really tricky negotiations that it wouldn't. I think Sporting, again, are just desperately trying to play a bit of hard ball here, tough guy stance after what happened at the weekend, the president's comments, then the deal being done basically 24 hours later. I don't think it's painted Sporting in the best of light. So I think this is probably them just posturing a little bit to try and save a bit of face on it. I think it gets done. Arsenal are pushing for it to get done by the end of this week, obviously, when they fly out to Asia for the pre-season tour. So I'm not sitting here concerned about it right now, obviously, until he's holding a shirt and all that generic cliche stuff. We can't celebrate the transfer completely, but this is so far down the line now. It progressed so much on Sunday for the deal to be agreed in principle. So I would say that at the moment, this will get done. It's just those last little fine details that we're having to sort of go over right now before we can really sort of celebrate and see Viktor Gyokeres in an Arsenal shirt. What is that number going to be? So much talk about that. What number is it going to be? 14? Would it be right for him to come in and take 14? I mean, look, Eddie Nketiah had it. It's not like it's been retired since Henry left. It will come with pressure. But I think what we've seen with Gyokeres is I don't think his pressure is something that he fears. I think that interview with L'Équipe at the weekend shed a real light on his personality and his character and his belief in himself when he spoke about how he sees himself as one of the top strikers in the world now that he's, at that top table. When it comes to strikers, he talked about the revenge that's sort of driving him, why he wants to come back to the Premier League because of his time at Brighton when he didn't get a sniff at the Premier League, spent all that time there, didn't get an appearance. He wants to put that right now. So he's got that revenge in his belly, that fire in his belly. So I don't think that the weight of the 14 shirt necessarily would weigh him down. There's a 10 shirt as well that is an option. I see 14. I think I'd prefer him as 14 than I would 10. I have to say, I don't see he's a big battering ram of a striker, is Viktor Gyokeres. I'm not sure that screams 10 to me. I think 14 would be the better number. But yeah, your thoughts on that? 14, should he have that? Is that a worry? Is that pressure? Does it matter? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Noni Madueke yesterday pictured coming out of a London medical centre, undergoing the final part of his medical with Arsenal. That deal obviously has now been done. Just waiting for confirmation. Again, I would suggest that's going to come at the back end of the week. I'm not, as it stands, expecting it today. I would never be able to say that 100% sure because you just never know with Arsenal. Honestly, the amount of times in my years doing this and covering this football club and reporting on this football club that you hear when an announcement's going to be and then suddenly it all changes for so many different reasons when it comes to clubs actually pressing the button and publishing all the stuff that they've got ready. So I at the moment, I don't think it's going to be today. I think it is going to be in the latter end, the stages of the week before they fly out on the Saturday, obviously. But again, I'm not going to say it at 100%. But the important thing is that Madueke is going to be an Arsenal player. He has now completed the final part of his medical. It's all pretty much just done and dusted. We are waiting for them just to press publish in the media team and for him to join. I think it's really interesting on Madueke, and I like it. I have to say that the sort of negative reaction, the real hostile, not negative, but hostile reaction, which was way over the top. You can have your thoughts on this deal. I've said mine myself, but in terms of the real hostile reaction, which is just so over the top and so unnecessary and horrible, to be frank, I think that has died down now, which I'm quite happy with, because this is a big moment for Madueke. It's a massive moment for his family. It's a huge move. It's one he really, really wanted. He pushed for when the opportunity was there. He really pushed to get this deal done. So this is a big thing for him. He's going to be really excited about it. His family are going to be really excited about it. And to sort of come in under this cloud of real hostility was not going to be nice for him. But I do feel that has lessened somewhat now, because the striker thing is pretty much over the line, which at the time when this deal was happening, that wasn't the case. And it still seemed like Arsenal and Sporting were deadlocked over the fee for that. But now that there's been the breakthrough in that, I think that has helped with how people are perceiving the Madueke deal. And I also think that given that Ethan Nwaneri's contract talks have taken a big step forward as well at the same time, which was another thing that people were linking to the Madueke deal. Was that going to impact Nwaneri's decision and end up forcing him out of the club? The fact that those two things now seem to be happening, now Nwaneri and the striker, I think has definitely calmed the hostility towards Madueke, which I think is a good thing, because when this announcement's come, as I said, which I'm expecting towards the end of the week, then hopefully it's not going to be anywhere near as bad a reaction as potentially it could have been. And I think for him and his family, I think that's a really good thing. And it will hopefully ease the sort of pressure and the scrutiny and the spotlight that he's going to be immediately under when he does become an Arsenal player. So yeah, Madueke, Mosquera, expecting those deals to be finalised, confirmed, announced by the end of the week. Gyokeres, have to wait and see at this point, because unlike the other two, that deal has not been officially closed yet. So we'll wait and see on that. Right, moving on to some of your questions and comments now. Padawan has got in touch on the Inside Arsenal Discord. He says, if we get one more in, hopefully Eze, this will surely be the best depth we've had since the Wenger years. With a fit squad, our first 5 subs are maybe Havertz, Eze, Marino, Calafiori, White. Maybe Josh was just a bit premature with his be excited. Yeah, I mean, look, the squad, I think it was really important, because so many of us have talked about last season, what went wrong last season. The lack of goals obviously was a big, big problem. Arsenal came up short in that regard. But I also think just the sheer amount of injuries was a huge thing for Arsenal. So building the squad up, making it better, making it stronger, avoiding Arsenal having to have the sort of bench that they had at times last season was absolutely crucial in what their planning would have been going on into this summer. And I think what they've done so far has significantly, in my view, raise the level of the squad. I think with the additions potentially of Gyokeres and Eze, if that happens, and I'm not saying that will happen, if that happens, certainly Zubimendi, I think those would certainly improve the starting 11, you would think, or not the starting 11, because I think we need to get out of our minds that it is the starting 11. I think we're basically going to have a starting, or the idea is to have like a starting, to be honest, the idea is to have a starting 22, because from what I understand, Arsenal very much the plan. They want a guaranteed, what they view as a guaranteed starter, pretty much 2 guaranteed starters in every single position, which is why they've been really pushed for Madueke, because they view that he could be a starter at the right wing as well as Bukayo Saka. And they want 2 in each position. And that's the plan. That's what they're aiming to get to. And I think this summer they're taking a big step forward in doing that. So it is very strong, Padawan. I agree. I think it's squad depth-wise, Arsenal are looking very, very solid. Now it's just about that little bit of, as I said earlier in the week, a little bit of sprinkling of stardust. Now Gyokeres will bring that if that gets done, and then hopefully, as you say there in the brackets, hopefully Eze as well, or Rodrigo, who obviously I wouldn't say no to either. Sam asked about Declan Rice. Do I have any idea why he's on his training program? Didn't travel out to Spain. I just think, from what I get, he's having because he played so much football last season, and Arsenal are very, very keen to ensure he's going to be as fit as possible going into the season, that he's just been given a bit of extra time to do his own program, and he'll join up with the squad once they get back from La Manga at the end of the week. So there's nothing to worry about injury-wise or anything like that. It's just he's following his own training program to make sure he's in as fit and good a spot position as possible come the end of the week. Oddie says, hello, Charles. Just joined the Inside Arsenal Patreon. It's a wonderful community. Thank you very much and welcome on board. And if anyone's watching this and they want to become an Inside Arsenal Patreon member like Oddie did here, then you can find the description down. Find the link down in the description below. Just put out yesterday the second episode of my Arsenal story series, which is with Brian McDermott, former player, former scout. We spoke about his time as a player coming through as a youngster, but then also his time as a scout working under Francis Cagliao and the big parts he played in the deals for Saliba, for Martinelli, and players like that. So that went out yesterday for Inside Arsenal members. Oddy says, my question is, how do you feel our current transfer activities and potential signings would be perceived by our current squad members? Do you think it would entice the likes of Saliba, Saka, and others to tie down their long-term futures at Arsenal? With so many players desperate to join Arsenal, it does seem like the place to be. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to help. Look, if you're a player, you want best possible teammates, you want the best possible squad. And I think players will look at what's going on this summer, and I think they'll be excited. I think they will. I think they're like us. They're just like us. They look around. They know they need more goals. I remember Declan Rice last season in January, whenever it was, when the injuries were hitting, was very public in his interview saying, I'm sure they're going to go out and sign players because we've basically got no one left on the bench. And they didn't. And so I'm sure the players at that point were like, what are they doing? Why aren't they signing players? So this summer, I'm sure they're looking at it from afar and thinking this is great. The squad's going to be a hell of a lot better when we go back next season. That's going to help us achieve what we want to achieve, which is winning trophies. So I think the current squad are going to be very happy with the potential signings and the transfer activity that is going on. I think it will very much help, and hopefully it will help with Saka and Saliba when it comes to the contract talks that are taking place at the moment, because they can see that the club are investing, they're spending money, they're doing what they believe is right to get the club to the trophies that they all crave. So I think it will certainly help in that. Here's one from Edward now. He says, pleased as I am to get Gyokeres, I'm really intrigued to find out what happened with Sesko. We clearly wanted him badly. We tried to sign him last year. For it not to happen a second time, oof. Obviously, I take what's reported with a pinch of salt, but if rumours of him wanting a release clause in his contract are true, I'm not surprised Berta Arteta binned him off. It's the Arsenal, mate. We're the peak. We don't do release clauses. Yeah, I don't know if that's true about the release clause. I saw it reported. I never heard that myself on it. I think it's more to do with Leipzig were very, very firm in their valuation of Sesko, and Arsenal didn't believe that valuation was good value for money for them, which is why they ended up sort of pivoting and moving towards Viktor Gyokeres. I'm not sure about the release clause. I don't know if that was genuine. I think that would have put Arsenal off a little bit, because they would have been like, why are you doing this? We're not a stepping stone. But I just don't know if that was genuine or not. Obviously, I've seen it reported, but I'm not sure. I think Sesko is going to be intriguing in terms of how he does next season, how every goal he scored is viewed by the Arsenal fan base next season. A lot depends on Gyokeres. If Gyokeres hits the ground running, scores loads of goals, then I don't think anyone's going to care what happens with Sesko. But if Gyokeres struggles initially to adapt and all that sort of stuff happens, and Sesko banging in the goals elsewhere, it's going to be, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be impossible to ignore it. Everyone's going to be talking about it, comparing. If Sesko ends up in the Premier League, which could happen, you'd never know. Liverpool is still looking for a striker at the moment. It looks like Newcastle could well sign Ekitike, which is pretty mad, and have a strike force of Ekitike and Alexander Isak next season. What are Liverpool going to do? Because we know they're after a forward, especially if Darwin Núñez does go. Do they move for Sesko? Does the Leipzig, the sort of Red Bull thing help with them, given Jurgen Klopp obviously is sort of overseeing the whole RB, the Red Bull football role at the moment? Will that help with them getting a deal for Sesko? Who knows? But I think I think a lot of people are certainly going to be focusing on what Benjamin Sesko does next season. I think that is absolutely inevitable. Gunnar Greg now on the Discord says, do these look like realistic fees we could get for our sales? Hines, 3 million with a 20% sell on. I wouldn't be surprised if you get more of a sell on than that. Arsenal have been pushing recent years. Look at the one they've got for Tavares, for example. Players like that was much higher than 20%. So it wouldn't surprise me if you get a fairly low transfer fee of sort of £3 million, you're probably right, 3 million, 5 million, but then a pretty hefty sell on closer to the sort of 40% mark. Zinni, 10 million. I think you could get more for Zinni. I think that's a little bit low. I think you have to factor the wages in, and not many interested clubs are going to be able to pay the sort of wages that Zinchenko is going to be asking for. So that might need to be factored in, and Arsenal might have to lower their valuation a little bit if they do want to get him out this summer. But I still feel 10 million might be a little bit. I would be pushing that more towards the sort of 15 million mark. I have to say, Nelson, 8 million. Yeah, maybe 10. I think with Nelson, I'd want double figures, I think, for Reece Nelson, even with just 1 year left on his contract. Vieira, 12 million. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all Arsenal are going to be able to get. It's going to be, whatever happens, they're going to take a big financial hit on Vieira. That one just didn't quite work out. Trossard, 25 million. I would say probably more 20 is more realistic with him, given his age. Kivior, 35 million. I would love that. I mean, I said earlier, 25 million for Kivior about a month ago and got absolutely hammered in the comments for it. But with justifiable reason, I can see why he should be worth more than that. But I also look at the clubs who are potentially going to sign Kivior or would potentially sign Kivior. And I just worry about the sort of money they might be able to put on the table for him. You say, I don't necessarily want Kivior to go, but if Kwanzaa got 35 million, surely we can match that. That Kwanzaa deal, though, I mean, that is definitely tied into the Wirtz deal. I'm absolutely convinced that was a bit of an accounting thing. There's no way Kwanzaa was worth 35 million in my view. I think if Liverpool weren't signing Wirtz at the exact same time, I'm not sure we'd have seen that transfer fee for Kwanzaa, I have to say. But maybe that's me with my looking at it from a sort of skeptical point of view. And that's it for today's show, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. As always, like I said, look out for Inside Arsenal Extra Time a little bit later on today with James Benj. That'll be getting released in the usual time, sort of around 5 o'clock this afternoon. Until then, take it easy, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.